Welcome back to Roadmap, Auto Trader UK's product and tech podcast. Now we've done lots of different types of episodes, but this one is firmly leaning into the day-to-day experience of one of our competencies, and that is BAs. And I don't mean like badasses, but actually our business analyst community. Now I've worked with BAs a lot in the past, but I've never been a BA. So I've got three extremely knowledgeable guests on the couch who live and breathe the role. First up, I've got Eman who's a graduate BA. Hello, Eman.
Hi.
Next up, I've got Majid,
Hi.
who is a senior BA.
Hi, Pete.
Hey. And last but not least, I've got High-End's finest, Mark Milliken, who is a principal BA. Hi, Mark. I don't know why I called you out on the Heinz finest. I know quite a few people from High-End. Nice place. Anyway, so I'm going to dive straight in here. Hopefully it's an easy question, but it obviously will be a hard question at the same time. But so the question is, why a BA? And then follow on, what attracted you to the role, and why did you become a BA at Auto Trader? Because I know you've all had different routes in. And I'm going to start with you, Iman, our graduate BA.
Yeah, so I came in through the grad scheme. So I did, at uni, I did something like completely different. I did chemical engineering.
Wow.
And I remember when I applied, I was like, oh, I want to do a master's. I want to do an international year abroad. And then like my second year, I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I just stopped at like a bachelor's and then started applying for jobs and stuff straight out of uni. And none of the engineering roles really appealed to me, so I went for like a project coordinator role.
Right.
Which was really good. Like it was really similar to what we do as BAs, like a lot of like collaboration, working with different teams, organisation, seeing like a project from start to finish. But it was quite a small company, and I knew I wanted to work for like a larger organisation. So when I saw like the grad scheme for Auto Trader, I was just going through the different roles. I think they had BA, they had account managers, developers, testers, and I was basically like, which one am I most likely to get hired for? So it was never like I was going out to look for a BA role, but it was what was most similar to like my prior experience,
Right,
and
cool.
what I was enjoying at the time. So yeah, just applied through there, and
Nope.
now I work for like the pies team, which is maintenance and
Yeah, I love that. I love the term pies.
acronym.
Pies. Yeah, every time I think, when people say I'm working on pies, I'm like, I've got this, like, the Dandy was you probably won't know what the Dandy is, but it's a comic from the
I know what it
80s.
is.
Yeah, and Desperate Dan used to have these massive cow pies. So every time someone says I work on pies, like, is it production incidents and something else? Can't remember what the acronym means, but it's not cow pies. So it is something around supporting incidents in live and how we get them resolved quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, different route for you, Mark. Obviously, I think you've been here since a baby, and you've been here a long time. So, again, what was your route into BA, and why a BA?
Why BA? I think firstly, like what attracted me to the role was, I think, what you originally asked, or why BA. I love solving problems. I just digging into like a complex problem, digging into the detail, all the intricacies, opening up all the parts and figuring out where's the inefficiencies. And then I think working with teams where you got to collaborate,
Yeah.
teamwork is super important. And then I think when I think about like why a BA, how did it even get into a BA? It goes back before Auto Trader. I think it goes beyond that. It goes back to when I was a teenager working with my dad as a roofer.
Right, I didn't know that.
Back there, I think in that role, that was a completely different career.
Yeah.
My dad thought I was going to take over the business side, different ideas. But that was very much about solving complex problems, efficiency of flow. The difference being, if a flow wasn't efficient on a roof, someone's ceilings were probably going to fall in.
Yeah.
And then another career path I went down after that was, I went to uni somewhere in between. Then I was working in a power station as a process engineer. And that was, like what we did was the ash from the power station. We maximised and reused the ash to produce new other materials.
Right.
Materials that were, used for like aerospace and
Yeah.
the automotive parts, and but that was very much again about the process and looking at a process in detail and looking for like where the queues are, where the bottlenecks are, and if there was any inefficiencies, it had to be super precise. And I think like this different experience was over those years was kind of building me up into, that's where I was getting a bit the experience from, the skills, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
The culture in a power station is completely different to AT. That's the bit I didn't like about that career path.
So how long have you been at AT? Oh, trader now.
2012.
Yeah, so same year as me.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and that's where I started as a graduate then at Auto Trader, a graduate test analyst.
Yep.
So again, not a BA. I was there quite a few years working with the technical teams. That's where I built up my technical domain knowledge. I got to senior BA, and then I was presented with a path towards delivery, which you've been in a
so
similar
you
place.
have been like in Auto Trader terms, you've been around the block quite a bit.
Yeah, picking up different skills from different disciplines.
Yeah.
And then a similar path again. Got to see senior delivery lead. I was presented with the option to move to principal, but there was a project at that time, which was a complex project, and it was migrating the data warehouse from on-premise data centers into the cloud. And it wasn't a simple lift and shift. It was, let's take everything back to source. We got to dig into every single use case. We need to understand the process end to end, who's using these things, and strip it down as much as we could, and then only migrate what the business really needed.
Yeah.
So I was playing two roles there. One was I was a delivery lead at times, so I had to zoom out and make sure all stakeholders knew where we was up to, the vision strategy of migrating the warehouse and how it fitted into the bigger picture. But then there was also the role I had to play, which was diving into the detail. And at the time when we started that, we didn't have a BA, so I took on that role as well.
Right.
Really dug into it, and realised actually I really like.
Yeah.
I really
So similar.
like it.
So even though very different to you, man, but also similar, like finding the core skills that match what you're interested in and previous experiences. I'm going to move on to you, Ime. So I've known you for a number of years now. We worked on and off together, and you were one of our first external hires in the sort of the new world of BAs. But before we got onto actually you joining in and being the only BA at the time, like how did you get into business analysis?
Got to roll back the clock about 15, 16 years now. The first software company I joined actually had a couple of roles in customer operations. So started off in tech support, kind of became second line and third line support, built up my knowledge around a set of products. And then I held another role, which was essentially being a stakeholder for customer operations. And that's where I really built up some of the analysis skills. So, analysing customer demand, feeding into kind of project delivery, impact assessments, kind of go-to-market type activities as well. And it was at that point where I got the opportunity for the first BA role, and it was a bit more of a natural transition for me. So the first software company I was there 10 years.
Yeah.
I did 4 to 5 years in customer ops, and then moved over for another four or so years in my first BA role. And that's kind of where I got the agile fundamentals, working in that environment, taking business problems, solving them, working with design and tech and other stakeholders in the business as well. And then from there, I actually moved to a consultancy for a couple of years, completely different domain.
But in the analysis space, was it?
In the business analysis space, different setup, and again, different domain. It was in healthcare this time, so it was working on GP systems.
I've been in that space,
And so totally different space, but that was specifically requirements analysis, requirements engineering. We weren't delivering a product. It was understand these things, understand what our customers want or what the end users want, and then essentially those requirements went to tender, and third parties would come in and build the software. So, a different space, but it was a good experience nonetheless. And then that's when I moved into Auto Trader not long after.
Yeah, cool. So, like, for a bit of history for people that don't work in Auto Trader. So, back when I think me and Mark joined in 2012, there was a different structure to the company, and then we moved into sort of squad type roles, and in those we had delivery leads, BAs, product leads, tech leads, etc. And then over time, those teams morphed, and actually the role of the business analyst wasn't really there at Auto Trader. And it was something that, bringing product closer to the tech teams. But actually, it was when I first met you, Imi, and I remember you saying, "Yeah, I'm a business analyst," and I'm like, "Whoa, what?
Where's this guy come from?
Well, it was a bit like, "Oh right, we've got a business analyst," and then it was that bit of going, "Well, actually, it's a community of one. It's a community of one." And I remember because I was in a different role that space and going like where does Imi sit? Like, who are his peers? Where's his community? And I know you're working very, very closely with product that time. But again, this is probably a question because it's now, and you've all been, obviously, Eman much more recently. But how has the community grown from that? So I'm not going to go back to 2012. I'm going to be in 2018. Did you join? 17?
Yeah, 2018. Yeah.
So 2018.
Not long after that, actually, 2019. It was
2019.
Yeah.
So Imi's there. He's got a title of business analyst, but there's only one. How has the community grown from one external hire for a very specific role, working in like the customer operations, CXO? I can't remember exactly the analogies we used, but he was in that customer operations technical domain to what he is today. So what has that transition been like? And I'm going to start with you, Imi, because you were. I'm not saying you were lonely. But that you were the only one we went through. Everyone, you see everyone's job titles, and it's like business analyst. Whoa, and then you carry on.
Yeah. I mean, at the time, like I said, I was in consultancy. Actually, I got contacted by a colleague who I worked with in the past.
Yep.
This job's come up, and I think you'd be a good fit, to go through recruitment. So, got through and came in, and I think I had spoken to Mark, but in terms of where we were quite siloed. Mark was transitioning over into.
So were you moving into BA at the same time? Were you
roughly in that same time period?
That.
Yeah,
similar time period.
Right. So there was an idea that actually this particular blend of skills is something, rather than it being distributed along lots of different roles of the not the niche, but the area you sit in was something that we really wanted to push on. Right, I didn't know that.
So I came into the business, and the tribe I was in, it was almost 100 people. I'm the only one in here. Loads of projects going on, but initially I was aligned to 2 projects, so Pies, which Iman's on now and running well, and a separate product which we had a smaller team of about 6 or so people on, and essentially I come in and I kind of drew from my past experience really, which was kind of what the BA responsibilities and how are they spread in the team at the moment. So fortunately in the teams I were in, there were some very experienced people who'd been here quite a long time, but things like analysing requirements, documenting requirements, collaborating for solutions, it was spread across like design and tech leads and other people in the team. So for me, I knew that I was going to be the first one back in the tribe, but I almost took that as a positive in terms of, right, how can I stamp my presence on the tribe, and how can I take that responsibility and take a lead? So essentially, when there was one project which was probably about 4 to 6 weeks away from completion, I kind of look at the state of play as it was then and set a goal, and that goal was, right, from whatever's left in terms of what's in the product backlog, make sure that's well understood, make sure I can start building my network of people to talk to, and that was more on the Pi stream where there was a range of queries coming in.
Yep.
And just essentially just set myself goals really, and started taking responsibility away from people who were essentially doing BA type activities on top of their own roles. So, but that came with experience as well. These people were quite experienced in their roles. So yeah, I took these things away, made the day-to-day delivery of kind of work items more slick, more efficient.
Yeah. And so when did one become two, Mark? Were you and Imi like joined up working together, or are you very much like we're trying to follow our own paths as individual BAs doing it differently, or did you start to like work together to try and like is the common ground of how we build the role out?
Yeah, I don't think there was like a point where we just turned up one day and went, we should talk more. I think it happened through like manager, and we started being aligned more to similar projects, teams moved closer together. And it was from that point, I think, where we just started working closer. And then around the same time, then we recruited 2 graduates to join. Somebody else was moving in from a different career path. So we ended up with about 6 at that time. And it was at that point where we said, you know what, we need to actually create some sort of career framework here, because we got graduates, we're just classed as BAs. We don't know what the progression is. There's no clear path for how we progress. So we all at that time then got together. There was 6 of us, I think, at the time, and just said, let's spend quite a bit of time. And we spent a lot of time on it, getting it right.
Yeah.
And from there, it's been used since. As we've grown, I think we've tripled in numbers.
Yeah.
So
and so yourself, Iman, you've probably benefited from because when did you come? Was it 2021 or 22 you joined?
No, 22, so it's just
22.
yeah.
Wow. I think we did your Green Man, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems ages ago. So you've been in a year and a bit, and obviously benefited. What was it like coming into like? It felt like a much more. Imi joins. He's the only BA.
Yeah.
Finds out there's this guy Mark from Highton who's moving into this role. He's like, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Who's this guy?
Gotta trust
then,
him.
yeah, and then you've got yourself joining where it's like a well-established community. So what was your experience of joining? Like, you probably it wouldn't have felt like it was only a community that had been established a few years.
No, definitely not. I think, like, in my experience, it felt like it was well established, and obviously it's only grown since then. Like, we've had all the Panorama people join, and we've had loads of other hires as well. I think we've got a Fest apprentice now as well, so it's only grown since then. But so I didn't really notice the development of the community per se. I can talk more about like the development as a BA using the framework that they put together, which was really good, because I think at the start, like, you see this framework and you have to like consciously use it when you're making decisions or when you're like on projects and stuff. But the more you develop into the role, it just becomes like second nature to you, and you just start doing all these things, and you have like a shift in mindset, which is more like a BA related mindset, I guess you could say, based on that framework. So yeah.
And was that framework established by yourself and that first sort of cohort?
Yeah, we sort of analysed ourselves really and said, what is it we actually do?
That's a bit abstract, that, isn't it?
So yeah, we did. We looked at what is it we do in our different spaces, and I think there was a time as well where we were, as Imi said, we were quite siloed, because we started working together and actually crossing over the different boundaries. And you'll hear the term like a full stack developer. We almost started becoming full stack BAs, where we wouldn't just somebody worked on the front end and I would work in the data space.
Yeah.
We did the full. It was like from front end right the way through to a database, and then we'd go from the operational plane onto the analytical plane, and we would be doing our analysis and our work right way through data products to reporting. And it did like start to evolve, and I think it was because of this community, as we started to share more, we started to do knowledge share, we started to pair and shadow on things, and just like share the knowledge and skills that we have to enable a lot more of that. And
has it always been in the current guys that part of the wider product family, or at that point was BAs separate? Because obviously we talk a lot now, again for people that aren't a BA or a trader, that we've got the product family, which Carolina like heads up from a CPO perspective, but in there, we look in, it's not just people that work here as product leads or product managers, there's BAs, and also there is a very close link with design as well. So has that always from a BA perspective been the case, or is that something that's more recent as well?
I think from my personal perspective, I've always been quite closely aligned with product and design, and I think that's probably a makeup of the first products that I worked on in the retailer space, there's always kind of design allocated to it, and there were quite a lot of product decisions and teams that were based in and around at the time, because essentially in the retailer space we've got a cluster of products that make up dealer portal essentially. So in my personal experience, I'd always been quite closely aligned with product, and it definitely is the case today where we've got the product and BA family all as one, and we're all kind of involved in our updates going forward as well. So yeah, from me it's been like that from the beginning.
Yeah, similar. So I think I've always worked with product people and designers, but I don't think we came together as much as we do now and share and learn from each other and actually have fun. We did well every now and then, but I think that happens a lot more now, and it isn't just ad hoc. It is we plan this in because we cared about it, and we do it regularly. So I think we're community-wise, BA and product is so much stronger than it was back at the time when it was just two BAs.
Yeah. I mean, again, probably in a way, I've got more of Iman's experience because I've been off doing other things and have come back more into the product community over the last 18 months, and like probably more purposefully over the last 6 to 12. And it wasn't I was surprised by it, but it just felt like he was like, whoa, we're doing all this together, and there's synergies between the job frameworks and the synergies of the way we talk about things, but there's also a clear distinction, which moves me on to like, actually, we had a session with one of the podcasts around delivery leads, and there was lots of similarities and stuff we talk about, but actually where does the BA role fit? Like, what are those core skills where there's unique core skills, but also core skills that overlap? I think yourselves did a presentation back to the product community on this a few weeks ago. So like, where is it you sit, and how do you complement and contrast those other roles that sit in the multiple discipline teams? I don't know who wants to take that one first.
Again, I'll just draw on past experience in terms of where we sit, and you've got kind of the core skills, which is kind of working in the detail, understanding your customer base, understand what the customer needs are, and they're quite core in terms of what we do and our responsibilities. But essentially, you've got a business problem, and then you want to get to a solution, and there's a lot of stuff that happens in between. And that's where we really get involved in the detail in terms of collaborating with either stakeholders in the business, whether that's colleagues in retail support, technical support, end users, design, tech leads. I think there's where you don't have the knowledge, and I suppose there's different camps in this as well. If you do have not knowledge on the product, which is where I was at a point in time, you could probably drive some of those decisions. But if you don't hold that knowledge and you have to work with other people and other stakeholders as well, there's a big thing around being able to facilitate that.
Right.
And
so if you're a domain specialist, it is more in the helping decision making. But if you're not, it's more on the facilitation and make sure the collaboration, the conversations happen, the documentation.
Yeah, exactly. And make sure that's all consistent. Make sure everybody's aligned. That's a massively underrated skill as well. If you do come to a solution, or you do come to how an application is being developed, making sure the team's aligned and pressing forward with that as well. That's quite big.
Yeah. I think what Amy said is correct. I think
I'm glad.
It was definitely
been a bit awkward, wasn't it?
like that.
I know. I fundamentally disagree.
I disagree with what you say.
I disagree with everything.
Yeah. No. We definitely have core skills, and then there's some that in them intersections, and that's where the friction could potentially creep up.
Yeah.
So you're talking about delivery. There's going to be some skills there, and I think what's important is it depends on, like, if it's a project you're going into and it's a new team coming together, and you've got that the model of like, what's it called? I forgot what it's called. There's a team growth that you go from foreman, storeman.
Norming.
Foreman.
Yeah.
Is it Thatchman's or?
I remember. I should know. I did it in college,
model,
but yeah.
Something like that. And I think it's really important at the foreman stage, where you talk to your delivery person, you talk to your product person, you talk to your tech lead, your data analyst or data scientist, and you just set expectations or agree responsibilities of a project before you get into that storming phase where if you haven't done that, then there could be a bit of friction, or you could be stepping on somebody's toes without knowing it. But usually, I think we're used to working in cross-functional teams of different disciplines, and you find your way, and you know, if somebody's comfortable doing something and it's working well, you're like, I'll leave that to them. It doesn't need to be touched. I'll actually focus on my core parts of the role, and I might do some other bits where I think there might be some gaps. In terms of like product, you mentioned product before. I think we definitely complement, and I think when a product person and a BA works together, it can be super powerful. I think especially for the development team, when they need somebody, a business expert with availability and just access to somebody to ask those questions as we are working on things, building on things, delivering things. And it isn't always the case where you're going to have the product person sitting there. You know, we're super busy, so having great accessibility to somebody who can answer those questions, or even asking why are we doing this around the vision and strategy, I think it just really helps. And you end up with a more efficient team, more robust products which are more thought about, and you know, we build better products by working that way.
And what's it like being a BA in the pie space? I know you're starting to branch out now, Eman, and you'll get a different experience, but in pies, it probably is a slightly different setup, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So we don't have, until recently, we didn't have like an allocated delivery person, and we don't really have a product person per se. We have like product people for different products in Portal, but not one for like the entirety of Portal. So you have to wear a lot of hats like along the way. So if you're making a change, if it requires a delivery aspect that isn't too huge, you have to just do it yourself.
Yeah.
Which is good in some ways, that you get to learn those skills. But it's still helpful to kind of involve a delivery depending on how big the change is and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think obviously there's loads of overlap between the roles and stuff, but I think where we differ is possibly like the perspectives that everyone kind of has, and maybe the priorities everyone has. So maybe you could say like a product person would care a lot about, you know, the impact on the end user. Tech will care about like how long it will take to develop it and the value that we get from it. But I think for a BA, it's important to bring all those different factors in and then just evaluate the value and analyse the impact of the feature from there.
Yeah. And have you found, as you've started to do outside of pies, like different experiences that are calling on what you've learned from pies?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going into more of like the consumer world, but it's really helpful to know how Portal works and how like they speak to each other, and it's just interesting to see a completely different side of the story. So it's definitely useful in terms of like making features. You're like, oh, this will help the consumer, but will the retailer like it, type of thing. So it's definitely helpful.
Yeah, so having that, again, it's probably leaning on what you were saying even before. There's a bit of domain expertise you built up on the Portal side, which is our trade tool for retailers. They can see what's going on their side of the market. And then moving into consumer, you can then translate that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So this is one of the, probably me and Carolina were chatting about this the other day. So Carolina, for listeners don't know, she's the Chief Product Officer. So Carolina looks after the whole of product. And we were talking about like when, the age-old question, when do we need a BA? Because we've got lots of initiatives going on. You know, we can't have one-to-one. That's not how it is. So when does an initiative, project, piece of work need a BA, and when does it not need a BA? And like, is there particular, I don't know, traits of the piece of work, or traits of the product manager, or traits of what are the things where you look at it and go, do you know what? To get the most bang for our buck, this is where we're gonna move people into. So I'm gonna start with you, Mark. I think it's a bit unfair to give that one to your man, like a year in. Sorry, man, what do you think?
I think there's a lot of factors that come into it when we think about where do we think a BA is going to have the most impact. It could be complexity. It could be there's a really complex project here and we just need somebody to go in there and dig into the detail and map out the as-is and the to-be process, and it'll really help that team to do whatever it is we need to do. The other side to it is business strategic goals. If there's a team who are all working towards the bigger picture and we see there's a need there for the BA, and then there's a team who are also asking for BA, but it's not quite as a high priority for the business. There's one clear winner there where we'd need to put the BA in that space where we're all working towards the same goal. And then there's other aspects to it as well. It could be a brand new team, and we just want to improve the team and the ways they work, and then we make a choice there. Is that a BA would do the best job there, or would it be a delivery person? Yeah. Maybe we speak to delivery, and they could be the person that would step into there. Another part to it, which is a really important factor, is we also consider the BA's growth. If we think they're not going to learn anything from the opportunity, then that's a question we ask, and we're always thinking about the BAs and like how are they going to grow the most, and who is it that would fit into that space.
Yeah.
So there's some of the things I think that go into it, and I'm sure there'll be many more.
Yeah. And Amy, so the other side of the question, because I think we were talking about this, and one of the initiatives is, when do you know actually this is the point where we're not needed, and actually like there is other people in there are actually picking up the role, and we'd be better placed somewhere else. What are the sort of signals or signs where you go? Because you've rolled off particular initiatives and rolled into initiatives where because there is a level of movement that is probably, it's not like every day, but there is a move into areas and move out areas with a little bit more of a slightly more regular cadence. It's not like spending years and years in an area. So what are the signals for you when going, actually, I'm going to move out this area now?
Yeah. I mean, we've got this concept of swarming onto certain projects and working through those. There's definitely something around, I mean, going back to what Mark said around complexity, how well seasoned a product is. So just going back to kind of Mappai's days, when something kind of falls into BAU, is well understood amongst a number of people in the team, whether that's product, BA, and or some of the rest of the product team. I think at that point, where there's another strategy or initiative that requires more investigation, kind of a discovery piece almost, that's not as well known, then you'd probably be moved on to something like that. You always need a BA, by the way. I wouldn't say that, you never need one. But it's kind of...
But I think it's more like everything's finite, isn't it? So there's always choices.
From a product lifecycle perspective, yes. But that's all down to strategy, initiative, how complex something is, and then what the kind of business needs are as well. So it's a combination of those things, I'd say.
Cool. So I'm just going to think now as we start to wrap up, because I know time is precious. But are there things on the horizon, like whether it be a piece of work, community stuff? I think Eman talked about, with the acquisition of Autorama, Vanarama, there's people coming in from that business with that skill set. What are the things that are exciting you, like being a BA over the next coming months, 12 months, whatever it is? I'm going to start with you, Eman. What are you excited about?
So for me, I'm entering the second year of my grad scheme. So it will just be like more grad projects and stuff like that. But I'm excited to become professional and see what that brings, hopefully.
Right. Awesome. Looking at Amy.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're working on it.
And then, as I said, I'm entering the consumer space a bit more. So that's very exciting. It's kind of like the main front advert page. So that'll be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, so expanding domain knowledge. That's brilliant. Yeah. Mark, next few months for you?
There's a few things. I think, as we mentioned, the tech under that Vanarama piece, I think we really need to dig into it, and I think there's going to be some migration there under the hood that's going to happen, hopefully with no impact. Nobody will notice any difference. But it's super exciting. We've also got the people who joined us as well, and just getting to know those people, learn more about those people. We've also got a little plug. We're advertising for early career internally at first, but it could quite easily end up into a graduate role as well.
Cool.
Yeah, so that could go.
So keeping the pipeline strong.
That's it. And then I think other things which I'm excited about. Do you know what I really want to see where it goes is is AI model languages, how that's going to affect our roles day to day. can we be more efficient in our day to day? But you've got to be careful with it. You've got to be careful with it. I don't want it to.
Yeah.
I don't want it to do my job and just put my feet up. There's a human element to it. But like, is the efficiencies there where we in our day to day in which we can take advantage of some of the new tech that's coming up? I think that's it. I'm excited about it, but I'm not getting carried away.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Imi? What's keeping you going?
I think for me personally, and it's something I've been part of for the last couple of years now, is really driving the community, or the BA community we've built. I've kind of been here from day one. It's gone, we're like 15 strong now. And it's just driving that forward. How do we share our knowledge? How do we share best practices? And just really keeping momentum going from that perspective and kind of elevating everyone in that space. And yeah, that's kind of where I want to go with it.
Oh, brilliant. No, it does feel like it's a community definitely on the up, and there's a lot of investment going in there, and like likes of Eman and others joining, so that's brilliant. So, but unfortunately, we are, and I'm definitely out of time today, which is a bit of a killer. So cheers to Eman, cheers to Imi, cheers to Mark. Brilliant to have a good knit now on the couch about all things BA. And if anyone would like to know more, I'm sure these three are much more active on LinkedIn than some of our other colleagues. So cheers for tuning in. Please like and subscribe on YouTube and hit the notification button so you never miss an episode, and follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Catch you soon.
Cheers.
Thanks, Pete.
Cheers.